You're watching the Bama Insider Daily Recruiting Update. Andrew Bone and Trey Andy joining with you after a huge weekend of recruiting for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Some unofficial visits, some official visits as well. Shimar James there are going to be the first guy we're talking about today. But before we get into that, Andrew, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. We just got through another week of the recruiting season. We're into our I guess you could call it the third week. Big official visitors coming into town this week. Big visitors overall. We've had two big weekends of officials so far. So it's been good. And, it's been a lot of work, a lot of content that's been coming out. But that's what that's what we're here for. We're here to post a lot of content and get scoop. And it's been fun. It's kind of funny because you go through the last year and your schedule kind of changes up a little bit in terms of there's no football camps, there's no going out on the road, there's no kids visiting schools or anything like that. So then you all try to cram it in to 1 month, and it's crazy. I mean, there's so many top kids who have visited Alabama over the course of the last couple weeks, and the majority of Alabama's key targets have been in town. Most of the rest of them are coming in town this week, so it's been fun. It's been pretty busy. On top of that, I have a pregnant wife. I have a renovation project going on at my house. We are living in between a couple different places right now, so it's been a fun summer so far. It's certainly a fun start to the month of June with everything going on with work, everything that's going on in personal life. So it's it's what we're here for, like I said.
Sounds like a hectic one. It's certainly a fun one, though, and wish you luck with all of that going on. But for Alabama, like you said, Andrew, just a massive weekend. And we did have the coverage throughout the weekend. You can check out BamaInsider.com for all of that. Check out the rest of our YouTube page as well and hit us up on social media, just at Bama Insider on Twitter and Instagram. Hit that like button for me while you're in here, too. And get in the comments. Let us know what you think. But, Andrew, let's start here with Shimar James. He committed on Sunday. A little bit unexpected. Commits to Florida. Do you think his recruitment is still open, and how hard does Alabama try to pursue this kid?
Yeah, definitely a big surprise. Coming off an official visit to Alabama last weekend, certainly felt that Alabama was in great position for him, and then all of a sudden goes down to Florida or visited Alabama 2 weekends ago, and then goes down to Florida and commits to the Gators. So definitely a big surprise. I felt like Alabama was going to get his commitment, and I think I've read different posts, different people have asked me, well, does this mean that Alabama didn't have a spot for him? Did he commit to Florida because he had a spot? I think a lot of people ask that question because you don't see many top in-state kids that are heavily recruited by Alabama go out of state. And we haven't seen one go to Florida in quite a while. I know last year Alabama was recruiting Jeremiah Williams, but they had pretty much loaded up at the linebacker position, so they weren't really taking another linebacker at the time. This year, they have been heavily recruiting Shimar James for a long time. Pete Golding, Sal Sinceri, done a tremendous job recruiting him, but he ends up committing to Florida. So I think it was a bit of a surprise. I think it was a bit of a surprise to Alabama. And I know that Shimar James has already talked to Alabama, since his commitment to Florida, and Alabama, going to continue to push for him, going to continue to recruit him. I think you look at a lot of people will look at the rankings. They see, 211th national ranking, number 9 overall player in the state. A lot of these rankings are flawed, in my opinion, just because a lot of these kids, most of them haven't been seen at all. A lot of them are, being ranked based off of offers. A lot of these kids didn't get a chance to go out during the spring and work out at different camps or get seen by, recruiting staffs. And when I say recruiting staffs, I mean, the recruiting websites, not necessarily the recruiting staffs at Alabama or recruiting staffs at Florida. this is a kid that Alabama absolutely loves. He's 6'3", about measured in at like 215 pounds. He came in on his official visit to Alabama last weekend. Alabama really likes him as an inside linebacker. And let me tell you something. This is a kid who is definitely higher up on Alabama's board than probably several people that are in the Rivals 100 that are linebackers. I mean, this is a guy that they absolutely love. They're going to continue to heavily pursue. I would not be surprised if we saw him potentially in Alabama's class a little bit down the road. But he's pretty happy with his commitment right now. But like I said, Coach Golding, Coach Sal, all those guys are going to continue to recruit him. They've already talked to him this week, and I certainly expect Alabama to still be in the hunt all the way until he signs.
Shimar James would be a massive get for this program. Really just a big weekend overall. As we kind of zoom out and take a look at the weekend as a whole, what are your main takeaways? And are you surprised that Alabama didn't come out of the weekend with any commitments?
Yeah, not surprised. This is a busy month for a lot of recruits in terms of, everybody's trying to get their official visits in, and a lot of these recruits who were visiting Alabama this past weekend, this was their third official visit. And most of them are wanting to take all five. This is a first opportunity these kids have had a chance to go out to different schools, see things for the first time. So not really surprised we didn't see any commitments out of the weekend. And I know that's kind of the number one thing that people want is commitments. It's great to get all these 5 stars and top 100 kids on campus for visits, but the excitement usually comes when you have commitments jump on board, multiple commitments. But we're seeing a lot of commitments down overall throughout the entire country. We're not seeing a ton of commitments just yet, and I think a lot of it just has to do with kids wanting to go out, see as many schools as they can, and then potentially decide before their senior season. So we're going to probably see a lot of commitments that are going to happen in July, August, probably not a ton in the month of June. Now, I still think we're going to probably see a commitment or two that's going to happen, but I just think it's going to be kind of a slower month in that regard. And I know everybody's been waiting. When's the next commitment going to happen? Well, a lot of that just has to, be patient. Just be patient. Let these kids take their visits, enjoy the process. But I think with this past weekend is getting a lot of top kids on campus yet again. Really trying to make an impression on a lot of these guys as they get ready to potentially make their decisions coming up. But you had a lot of big name prospects that were in town. You had guys like Zach Rice. You had Nia White. Danny Dennis Sutton. Bryce Anderson, Arch Manning. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on and on. And we'll talk about, some of those guys a little bit, more. But obviously, big weekend. A lot of 2022, 2023 recruits that were in town. Unfortunately, they had a barbecue on Friday night, which was pretty much for the kids who were in town for official visits, and even the guys that were coming in on Saturday, just had a kind of a barbecue on Friday night at the facility, and a good time. A lot of people were really excited about that, but Alabama didn't really push that as a big event. They didn't push that like we need every single top recruit in Tuscaloosa this weekend for this barbecue. It was just, hey, if you're in town, we're having this barbecue. Let's have some fun. They had O-line, D-line camp on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. They were going to have a 7-on-7 event, but it got canceled because of the storm. It actually got pushed back to this weekend. So they're going to revisit that and have the 7-on-7 tournament this weekend. I'm sure some of the out-of-state schools who were originally planning on coming are not going to be participating, but I imagine most of the in-state schools, and any regional schools that are close by, will still participate in that event. But it was obviously a great weekend overall. A lot of great feedback. We have a ton of interviews on Bama Insider right now from a lot of top recruits who are in town this past weekend. So certainly encourage you to go and read that. But also, we have the Insider Report. Just posted on Monday night a complete recap of where things stand with each and every target, and we'll talk about each target a little bit on here, but goes a little bit more in depth on Bama Insider. So go over to Bama Insider, get all those nuggets there, and I think most Alabama fans will really enjoy it.
They will, guys. Go check it out. Andrew Bone works harder than any recruiting expert in this country to get you guys that content. So please go check it out. We are going to cover it in this video, though, as we kind of transition to talk about some defensive guys. One of the kids I had a chance to see this week, I was very impressed. Quincy Wiggins, him, another defensive end, and Dennis Sutton, along with a couple of other defenders, and Zach Rice and Elijah Pritchett, as well as you talk about some linemen. Overall, who do you see Alabama landing out of this group? And just kind of talk about their visits this past weekend.
Let's talk about the those defensive linemen first, and Dennis Sutton and Quincy Wiggins. Quincy Wiggins making his second trip to Alabama this past week. Visited on Friday, competed in the 5-Star Challenge on Thursday. You were there, Trey. I got a great video interview with him. But Quincy Wiggins earned an offer from Alabama earlier this summer, so getting him back on campus was big for the Tide, because LSU kind of considered the betting favorite for him this summer. But this is certainly has become a close race. It's a 2-team race between Alabama and LSU. Both schools heavily recruiting him. He has not said when he's going to make a decision, but Alabama certainly strongly in the mix there. And then denied Dennis Sutton, the Rivals 100 5-star linebacker or 5-star defensive end from Maryland. Took his official visit this past weekend. Had a great time. Had an opportunity to talk to him a little bit about his official visit, and really high on Alabama. This was like I said, his first time visiting Tuscaloosa. He has a decision coming up in the next couple weeks. Has not really set a decision date just yet, but says it's going to happen pretty soon. He's going to take an unofficial visit over Georgia this weekend. It's the second time he's visited Georgia this month. He's also visited Penn State. So those are the top 3 schools for him. Yeah, it's hard to predict on Dennis Sutton right now. I think that all 3 schools likes all 3 of them, but would not be surprised if he decided to stay a little bit closer to home. I think Penn State, it's kind of been the favorite for him throughout his recruitment. I think the plan was always to stay a little bit closer to home, but visited Georgia, visited Alabama, really likes the SEC schools. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see. Obviously Alabama's going to continue to recruit him, but yeah, they really liked him a lot this past weekend, and I certainly think that they've made a strong impression. But then flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, you have 2 guys that big targets for the Crimson Tide, and Elijah Pritchett and Zach Rice. Zach Rice from Lynchburg, Virginia. Definitely an elite prospect that Alabama has just continued to move up the recruiting board with over the last several months. I remember back in the fall, he put out a top 8, did not have Alabama in his top 8, but Doug Marrone, Sal Sinceri, that whole staff has done a tremendous job recruiting him throughout this entire process, and they were able to get him in for an official visit this past weekend. And I had a chance to talk to Zach on Sunday about his overall trip, and the thing that really impressed him were the overall data numbers in Tuscaloosa, and sitting down with the staff, sitting down with Coach Saban, and just going through the graduation rates, going through medical history, the percentage of athletes at Alabama that get injured. It seems to be significantly lower than other schools, and that was something that really impressed him a lot, and really impressed his mom a lot. Was the graduation rate for the football players at Alabama? I think it's an 88% graduation rate. But Coach Saban and his staff, basically showed them that if a lot of the players who left early for the NFL draft decided to stay, that percentage would have gone up significantly to close to 97%. So that was something that really stood out to Zach and his mom. He says he's going to make a decision sometime this summer. Doesn't know when yet. Now, he's visited Alabama, visited Ohio State, has visited Virginia, and he's going to take a visit to Notre Dame this weekend. Now, he took an unofficial visit to North Carolina earlier this summer. He has not taken an official yet to North Carolina. That's still kind of in the cards. He's trying to work out a date with the Tar Heels, but yeah, I think it could really go either way with Zach Rice right now. I think Virginia and North Carolina were always really high on his list. Ohio State's been high on his list, but after this weekend, I think Alabama certainly has. I don't want to say vaulted to the top, but they are right there in the mix for him, and they are going to be there all the way until the end. And then with Elijah Pritchett, another outstanding offensive lineman that Alabama has heavily recruited for a long time. He was at the 8A game, came back in town this past weekend with his mom. I talked to him yesterday, and he said that he brought two of his younger brothers with him on the trip. And I said one of his younger brothers was so sad on Sunday when they had to leave because they didn't want to leave, and they finally had to get him out of there. So this is a kid that they really like a lot as an offensive tackle. He's going to wait a while. There was some thought that he was going to make a decision this summer, but he's going to wait. He's going to wait until probably sometime this fall. He wants to go to some games, experience the game day atmosphere. You got to remember, these kids haven't experienced the game day atmosphere. Some have. Some have gone to games and last year and just sat in the stands and then gone home. They haven't experienced this whole game day atmosphere, being down on the field, being down on the sidelines, being in the locker room, and touring around campus, before kickoff. That hasn't happened for most of these kids in this 2022 class. So a lot of them want to experience that. So Elijah Pritchett says he wants to experience that before he makes a decision. But I do think Alabama has a great chance at landing him. I have a future cast actually on Rivals in favor of Alabama, but we'll just have to wait and see. A little bit further down the road, Alabama, Georgia, USC, Florida State. All top schools for him right now. He was going to take an official visit to Arkansas this weekend, but after the O-line coach left, went to LSU, he's canceled that visit. So Arkansas now out of the mix. So he might add another school in there here in the next few months, but as of right now, it's a Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, USC battle for Elijah Pritchett.
Great to talk about the linemen. Hit that like button for us, guys. Get in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. We appreciate you being with us here for this recruiting update, a really big one after this really big weekend. Talking about the linemen there, let's talk about some official visits here, Andrew. Some intriguing guys. Jahlil Skinner hitting campus. You see Anani White as well. Isaiah Bond coming to campus. The Florida commit, Jaron Kinneck as well. Talk about these guys and who Alabama is really pushing the hardest for out of that group of official visits.
Yeah, I think Jahlil Skinner really impressed Alabama just from his physical, presence when he was in town this past weekend. A lot of these kids, especially the ones that come on officials, they don't work out, so you didn't get a chance to see them. And like I said earlier in the show, just because you're an official visitor doesn't necessarily mean you're considered a take. Alabama's bringing in a lot of official visitors this month, but there's a lot of guys who are definitely takes, and there's a lot of guys who, they're impressed with once they get on campus. And Jahlil Skinner was certainly one of those guys that, has been, at or near the top of Alabama's tight end board for a while. He was targeted back in the spring, back in March, and even though Alabama didn't see him, they really liked him a lot based on his film. And then when he showed up on campus this past weekend, really impressed with what they saw from him. Now, he has some other schools that he really likes a lot: Florida State. I know he's taking a visit out to USC. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens there. But I think Alabama has really shot up the recruiting board for him. Would not be surprised if he's the second tight end in Alabama's class. Alabama also has another tight end in Elijah Brown, who I was told was extremely impressive at Alabama's camp this past weekend. His first visit to Alabama, and certainly somebody, a lot of these kids that commit early to Alabama or any other schools, maybe you don't know a lot about him, but you see some film, you see his size, you're like, all right, now this is a guy that we should go ahead and take a commitment from. And I knew back early on that Elijah Brown was very high on Alabama's board at the tight end position. They wouldn't have taken a commitment from him if he wasn't. So they take a commitment from Elijah Brown, and then he comes onto campus. And I think Alabama was absolutely blown away by what they saw with him. I think that he could really move up in terms of his overall ranking. But yeah, he had an impressive showing. So if you potentially pair Elijah Brown and Jahlil Skinner in this recruiting class, you're set at tight end. I mean, we've talked about can Alabama land, these elite tight ends? And, I think they feel like they have one in Elijah Brown. And if they can get Jahlil Skinner on board, they're going to be extremely excited. And, I think Alabama fans will be pretty happy too. So, Jahlil Skinner, great official visit, came with his family. And, we still working on trying to get an interview with him. He's kind of hard to track down, but, he shared a lot of pictures from the weekend. So we'll get him eventually. But he had a great trip. But, Isaiah Bond, Florida commitment, made his way to Tuscaloosa. Really talented athlete. He won the fastest man award at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. The day before he took his official to Alabama. Visited Miami last weekend. Has a lot of interest in Alabama. It's hard to say if he's going to flip. I think Alabama's in it. I think Alabama getting him on campus, they kind of got an idea that where they were going to recruit him as, because labeled as an athlete right now. And I talked to him a few different times prior to his visit to Alabama. And, that's kind of what he said. Alabama was recruiting him as an athlete. They'll kind of figure it out, a little bit down the road. Florida has recruited him more as a wide receiver. But after getting down to Tuscaloosa, hearing a little bit more that Alabama is going to recruit him as a wide receiver. So adds another name to that wide receiver board. Not a lot of guys on that board that they would probably take commitments from at this time. Probably, I would say around maybe 4-5 guys that are out there in the country that they would take commitments from for wide receiver. Bond is one of those guys. They really like him a lot. Definitely going to continue to recruit him, and kind of see where things unfold over the course of the next couple months. And Nye White, outstanding linebacker from Philly. Had a great time in Tuscaloosa. We had an interview with him up on Rivals about his official visit. Now, he's not anywhere close to making a decision. Now, he's taking some official visits this month. Visited Florida, visited Alabama, visited Georgia. Going to go up to Ohio State, but he plans on waiting until the season. So his recruitment was not won this weekend, and Alabama wasn't, they were trying to make a strong impression, but they weren't trying to win over him this weekend. They know he's going to wait a while. They want to win him over when the time is right. So I think Alabama did a great job recruiting him this weekend, and I think they're certainly going to press forward. And I would not be surprised if they're in the driver's seat at this time. And, a couple other guys who visited this past weekend, Jamarion Miller. I think with him coming into town, Alabama seeing him for the first time, just think that he's probably going to end up going elsewhere. Hadn't heard much about his trip to Tuscaloosa. Sometimes, kids just don't want to talk if the visit wasn't that good. Sometimes they just don't want to talk at all. Jamarion Miller, I think he measured in right at about 6 feet tall during his weekend trip, and I just don't think Alabama is going to continue to really push hard for him over the course of the next few months. Certainly expect him to go elsewhere right now. Damonte Jackson, 5-star defensive back out of California, Mater Dei High School, same high school as Bryce Young. Tony had a great story on Bama Insider with his father. And this is just one of these kids that you have to continue to chip away with. You have to continue to recruit. He only took an unofficial visit to Alabama this past weekend, so that means he can still come back for an official. So we expect him to come back for an official visit. Still committed to USC. This is a school that he grew up loving. But we've seen others. We've seen plenty of other players leave the West Coast, go to Alabama. I think Alabama has a chance with him. It's going to be really interesting, kind of see how this DB board unfolds, especially over the course of this summer. Does Alabama, load up over the course of the next month or two, potentially with commitments with Earl Little Jr.? Does he decide to go ahead and commit, or is he going to wait until the fall like he says he will? You have Denver Harris and Terrence Brooks both coming in for official visits this weekend. Do we potentially see commitments coming from them to Alabama? Regardless, Damonte Jackson is going to remain one of Alabama's top defensive back targets. They're going to recruit him even if they get commitments from all three of those guys that I just mentioned. They really like him a lot, and we'll kind of just see what happens. He's an elite player, and definitely somebody that had a great visit to Tuscaloosa this past weekend.
Yeah, another one of those West Coast guys you got to, like you said, kind of chip away at. But Damonte Jackson, another five-star, that would be a huge get for Alabama. Running back, that would be a really big get for Alabama. Has his decision date set for July 21st. Branson Robinson, the five-star running back. What's the crystal ball here? Where do you see Branson Robinson ending up? This is another kid Alabama's pursued very hard.
Yeah, Alabama likes Branson a lot. He visited Alabama for the first time this past weekend for an official, and I think when you see all these photos of him that have popped up online, especially from the rivals camp, that's where these photos really kind of went viral, and just really strong kid, very powerful, built like a Mack truck. I mean, this is definitely a tough kid to tackle. But you look at Alabama's running back board right now. You have two running back commitments, Le'Veon Moss, and you also have Emmanuel Henderson. Now, we talked about this many times. Emmanuel Henderson, could be labeled as an athlete, but guess what? Alabama considers him a running back. Le'Veon Moss just recently committed to Alabama. He has been taking some visits. Visited TCU, visited Texas A&M the last 2 weekends since his commitment to Alabama. So, does Alabama potentially take another running back just in case somebody decides to flip? I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see three running backs on Alabama's recruiting board. I think it's going to be tough. It's just definitely a good position in this year's class. I don't think they would have taken Le'Veon Moss if they didn't think very highly of him. I know there's some other backs that they've been recruiting that are rated higher on rivals, but that doesn't mean that they're rated higher than what Alabama's recruiting board looks like, what their recruiting board at the football facility looks like. I think Le'Veon Moss was certainly, right at or near the top, along with Emmanuel Henderson. And Branson Robinson, certainly a guy that they really like a lot, but, are they going to have, a space for him when he's ready to commit? I just don't know. And that's why I think Georgia's probably in great position with him. I think they're probably going to get his commitment, because I don't think Alabama just has too many running backs right now. Alabama also had a couple other running backs in town this past weekend that we're going to continue to monitor. Jamarion Miller out of Texas, Trevor Etienne out of Louisiana. Now, I think there's probably a little bit more interest in Jamarion Miller right now. I think they really like him a lot. So I think they're going to continue to kind of monitor him, kind of see where things go in his recruitment. Is he going to make decisions, relatively soon, or is he going to wait a while? We'll just have to wait and see. But I think Alabama's pretty excited about the running backs it currently has on board with Moss and Henderson, and just kind of play it by ear. Things might change, but I think as of right now, those are going to be the two backs in Alabama's class for a while.
Yeah, I like that idea. Play it by ear. Some really talented kids there. Le'Veon Moss, and we'll see if Branson Robinson is added to that group as well. We talked about our little junior Damonte Jackson for a little bit. Some other unofficial visitors, though, I'd like to get into. Jeremiah Alexander. Got to talk about Arch Manning here as well, and Luther Burden, the receiver. What were these official visits like? We saw the social media, everything else, but kind of give us the background on what these guys got done in Tuscaloosa this weekend.
Well, obviously, a lot of people want to know about Arch Manning's visit, and rightfully so. This is
Oh yeah.
one of the most probably going to be one of the most scrutinized recruits that we've ever seen, just because of the name. And there's going to be a microscope on him for the next 10, 15 years. And this is a kid who's going to be a junior this fall. Uncles are Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, and I think that obviously he's got a lot of high expectations, and definitely a lot of schools that are heavily recruiting him. He likes Alabama. Visited Tuscaloosa, arrived in town on Thursday. I think he stayed until Sunday. Has visited Texas, has visited Clemson this year already. So, has some schools that he's very interested in, that he really likes a lot. But I think with Alabama, he's got to, this is going to be a long process with him. This is not going to be a decision that ends anytime soon. He's going to take take some visits to games this fall, going to visit schools next spring, and just enjoy that recruiting process. And I think, I think his family's probably going to be pretty guarded with him. We haven't had a chance to talk to him about his visit to Alabama, but we talked to some people who said, family just really doesn't want a lot of attention on him just yet. Just kind of let it play out. But he's certainly a kid that is going to enjoy this process for a while, and not on social media. He's not out there, posting a lot of things or trying to get any attention. The attention's already coming on him. He knows that. So I think he's just trying to stay out of the spotlight. But from talking to different people who were around him this weekend, great time in Tuscaloosa. Really hit it off with Coach Bill O'Brien. So we'll just have to wait and see. We know that Alabama has some good quarterbacks. Some young quarterbacks, including Ty Simpson, 5-star quarterback in this 2022 recruiting class. So not to say that he's going to be scared of competition, because I don't think that's the case at all. But I always wonder, a recruit's mindset. You're a 5-star. You see a 5-star in the previous class. One of the most heavily recruited prospects. Does that entice you to go somewhere else, or are you going to say, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to compete with that 5-star, I'm going to try to beat him out? Or do you go somewhere that maybe they didn't sign a 5-star, maybe they didn't sign a quarterback in the previous class? You don't know sometimes, and I think there's a lot of recruits who probably say, I'm not scared of competition, but nobody's going to say, oh yeah, I'm scared of competition. But I don't think Arch is like that at all. Obviously he comes from a great family, and they know what it takes to compete and win at the highest level. So I don't think he's got that mindset at all. But I do think that a 5-star quarterback in the previous class, could entice somebody to potentially go somewhere else.
It's going to be a fun one to follow. Of course, Arch has the history, and you hear about his father kind of being the best of the 3 brothers out of Peyton, and Cooper is his name, and Eli as well. But, we're going to kind of have to see how that one goes. Talk about a guy like Ty Simpson. He stated earlier this year he's not worried about the competition, and he's willing to wait his turn, even if there is the competition. Jalen Milroe, part of this group as well. And another guy I had a chance to catch up with a little bit this week at the 5-star challenge, Jaden Davis, way far away at this point. He's class of 24, but really talented kid that Alabama's showing some early interest in. We'll talk about that in later shows, but we got to continue to focus on these guys. Let's talk about Luther Burden here real quick, how his visit went, maybe touch on Jeremiah Alexander as well. A couple of big prospects that were also in town this weekend.
Yeah, Jeremiah Alexander making his second trip to Tuscaloosa this summer. Was in town Friday and Saturday, came down for the barbecue on Friday. So, just getting, more comfortable in Tuscaloosa. And, I know he came out and said that Clemson was his favorite. I just have a hard time believing that he's going to go anywhere else. I think Alabama's in good shape. Now, he tweeted a couple weeks ago that, he was shutting down things on social media, was going to stay off for a while, so he can focus on, everything that he needs to focus on. He's trying to graduate early. That's the plan. So he's just trying to stay focused on school, stay focused on his football team, get ready for the upcoming season. So as of right now, like I said, I still like Alabama's chances with him, even though he came out and said Clemson was his favorite. Luther Burden, 5-star wide receiver, visited Tuscaloosa this past weekend. Was actually in town for that 7-on-7 tournament that got canceled. So not sure if his team's coming back to Alabama this weekend. I wouldn't expect they are, but might be. Still need to try to confirm on that. But yeah, I think with Alabama and Luther Burden, just needs to be seen a little bit more. There's some great wide receivers that they're heavily recruiting. Whether that's Evan Stewart or Barian Brown, Maury Kelly. You have some other guys that are out there, Kendrick Law. I think Isaiah Bond. But right now, I think with Luther Burden, you just got to see him a little bit more. I think Alabama wants to evaluate him. They were going to see him finally on campus this weekend. The camp got canceled, so they didn't get the chance to evaluate him. And this is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of, it doesn't matter if you're a 5-star or if you're a 3-star. you have to be evaluated. You have to be seen in person. You can't, most of the time you can't just take a kid based off a highlight film. You want to see them in person, especially when you're only taking a few players at the position and you have other guys that you've seen that you really like that you're going to take commitments from. You still got to see everybody in person. And, Luther Burden's probably a kid they want to see a little bit more, even though he's an elite player and film looks great. Probably want to evaluate him just a little bit further down the road, and they're going to be able to do that. And they're recruiting him, they're showing interest, they're talking to him. But in terms of giving that extra gear, I think they're going to probably wait a little bit on Burden right now.
That makes sense. I mean, when you're, talking about 5-star after 5-star, the 4 stars in the mix as well, you really gotta, look for certain things to separate these players. They're all so talented. Burden's gonna be a fun one to watch. Alabama extended some new offers this past Monday as well, just a day ago. Really some intriguing ones in this one out of the class of 2022. You talk about Mason Taylor, Fitzgerald West, even a 2025 athlete in Keelan Moses, the younger brother of Dylan Moses, that is, out of Louisiana. But, who out of these guys do you think is really the most intriguing? And, how serious is that offer for an athlete in the class of 2025? That's pretty far away.
That's right, but you know what? His brother got offered when he was going into his freshman year as well by Alabama, and he turned out pretty well in Dylan Moses. So Keelan, yeah, I'm really anxious to get a chance to hear a little bit more about him. 6'2", about 210-pound athlete, and listed at just about every position that his brother played: running back, defensive back, linebacker. I remember going to camps back in the day and seeing Dylan work out at wide receiver and defensive back, and I was always wondering, why are you working out of these positions? You're not playing those positions in college, but those were the positions that he was playing in high school. So that's why he was going out there and showcasing it. And he looked really good. So, really intrigued to see, how Keelan develops over the course of the next couple of years. But yeah, I mean, they offered 2 2022 recruits yesterday. Mason Taylor, tight end from St. Thomas Aquinas, down in Fort Lauderdale, same high school that has produced a lot of Alabama players: Dallas Turner, Jordan Battle, Braylon Ingram, guys are on the team right now. So, he really liked Alabama a lot, really enjoyed the camp. So this is going to make a decision at the end of the summer. A little bit bigger than I think Alabama was expecting. I think he's gained about 20 pounds since the last time Alabama had seen him. So they were impressed. They were really impressed with his side. He had a great workout, and definitely somebody that I think they're going to continue to watch. Now, we know Alabama has one tight end commitment already in Elijah Brown. Jahlil Skinner, Oscar Delp, 2 other elite tight ends who visited Alabama this summer, who are probably going to make decisions over the course of the next month or two. So I think Alabama probably will wait to see what happens with Delp and Skinner, but they like Taylor a lot. And this could be a potentially really good option for them, if Delp and Skinner end up going elsewhere. So we're going to continue to watch him for right now, kind of see where things go, but definitely made a strong impression on Alabama. Now, Fitzgerald West, very intriguing prospect, just because ends up going to Alabama's camp yesterday, working out, measured in, I think, around 6'2", 315 pounds, worked out as a defensive lineman. But when he met with Coach Saban after the camp, Coach Saban told him they're going to recruit him as an offensive lineman. They like him as an offensive guard. They want to see him a little bit more this upcoming season. And that's the case that we're seeing with a lot of these offers that are getting extended this summer, especially to the 2022 guys. And I think people just don't understand. There's a lot of kids that are out there that are, you have your upper echelon kids, your kids that can commit whenever they want to. Then you have kind of your next wave of kids that they're kind of in that second tier. They need to be seen just a little bit more, whether it's a camp, whether it's maybe a game this upcoming season. You have the kids that are coming to camp who look really good, but maybe they didn't have the best junior film, so you're wanting to see them a little bit more. And then you have some kids that you frankly just don't know a ton about, and they're coming in and working out at camp doing really well, and you still decide, all right, we still need to see you just a little bit more this upcoming season, just to make sure that we're making the right decision. So Fitzgerald West impressed. he looked really good at camp on Monday. But same time, Alabama didn't work him out as an offensive guard, worked him out at defensive tackle. They want to evaluate him a little bit more this fall on the offensive line. That offer that got extended could easily turn to a committable offer here in the next couple months. And I know a lot of people get confused. Committable offer, non-committable offer. What does that mean? Basically what it means. You have an offer, they like you a lot, but there might be a little bit of a pecking order, or there might be, another evaluation tool. You can say you have an offer from us, but we still need to evaluate you a little bit more. We need to see you in camp. We need to see you in a game. And recruits understand that. They're told that. They're not told, hey, you have an offer, commit when you want, and then they call to pick up the phone and commit. They can't commit. They know the situation, even though they may not say it. I appreciate Fitzgerald talking to me yesterday and saying, yeah, Coach Saban had told me I have an offer, but he also wants to see me play this fall and wants to see me as an offensive lineman this fall before making a decision. You don't get that a lot of times with the recruits, but those are two guys that in that 2022 class that were offered on Monday that we're going to continue to monitor moving forward.
Yeah, it's great to see the youngster be so open like that in Fitzgerald West, and it's a fun process to follow. And it's different for every kid, but we'll keep a tab open on those two. What's in store for the rest of the week for Alabama? It's the final big recruiting week of the month of June. You got a lot of top prospects still coming in. JTT, the guy I really want to focus on here, but talk about the prospects as a whole and kind of where things stand with JTT. I'm gonna continue to try to learn this last name before I say it here on air. I don't want to botch it.
I'm probably not saying it right either, so that's okay. This is obviously a big month or a big week. It's the fourth week of the recruiting season. Official visitors. I mean, it's just it's getting most of the last few guys that are high on your recruiting board in Tuscaloosa. Whether that's an official visit or an unofficial visit, you're trying to get all your top guys in town over the summer at some point just to visit the campus. Even if they're not making decisions before their senior season, you want to get them on campus, start thinking a little bit more about Alabama, and then potentially get them on campus for an official visit or for a game this fall. So, we've seen so many top recruits that have come in, throughout these first few weeks so far, and now we're in week number 4, and a lot of top prospects are heading to Tuscaloosa, including JT Tuimoloau. He is going to make his much anticipated visit to Alabama this weekend. Now, he's already taken visits this month he just came off a visit to Ohio State. He's visiting Oregon currently. He's visited Washington and USC. So this is going to be his final visit before making that decision. Can Alabama win him over? I think Alabama's been, right there at the top for a while, but he has taken officials elsewhere. Obviously seen some things that hasn't seen before. Probably has, come off these visits on an emotional high. So now he's coming to Tuscaloosa, where they're going to get the last shot. And I think Alabama can definitely win him over. But it's going to be interesting to kind of see how it plays out, because he's going to make a decision over the course of the next, couple weeks shortly after his visit to Tuscaloosa, so that he can enroll in July, get to campus and enroll. So we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously Ohio State has felt good about him for a very long time. I think they still feel good about him, but I do think that Alabama is right there with them. I also think Oregon's right there with them. I think Oregon has a great chance. I think Mario Cristobal and that staff have done a great job recruiting him throughout the process. So I would be shocked if it's USC or Washington, but if it's one of the other 3 schools, would not surprise me at all. So we'll see if Alabama's able to make a strong impression, which I believe they will, and we'll see if it's a lasting impression. You got to remember, he had some other teammates that were in Tuscaloosa earlier this month. Caleb Presley, who was offered by Alabama in that 2023 recruiting class. He's friends with Jaden Wayne, who also visited. There's been a whole group of kids from Washington that came to Alabama, just absolutely blown away earlier this month. And, commitment from JTT to Alabama could potentially, really open up the door for Alabama in the Pacific Northwest moving forward, because there's a lot of guys up there that they're heavily interested in, that they're going to be recruiting for the next couple of years. So we're going to continue to watch that pretty closely. But he's not the only guy that's coming into town. We're going to see Walter Nolan, five-star defensive lineman, going to take an unofficial visit to Alabama on Wednesday. There's some kids on campus today on Tuesday. Shaz Preston, four-star wide receiver out of Louisiana, is going to be in town. You also have Richard Young, who's one of the top running backs in the country in the 2023 recruiting class. Evan Stewart, big-time wide receiver out of Texas, one of Alabama's top overall targets, not just one of their top receiver targets, one of their top overall targets, making his trip to Tuscaloosa on Thursday. So he'll be in town Thursday and Friday of this week, not taking an official visit, just an unofficial visit. So Alabama really excited about getting him on campus for a couple of days. And then going into the weekend, just a lot of big names. And, there's a lot of juniors that are going to be coming into town. There's a lot of kids that are going to be coming into town participating in that 7-on-7 tournament. But as far as official visitors go, I think it's an unbelievable group. You have Tyler Booker, Rivals 100 offensive lineman from IMG Academy. You have Denver Harris, five-star cornerback from Houston, from North Shore High School, where Alabama's landed a couple of players from North Shore over the course of the last couple of years. You have Terrence Brooks coming in for an official. You have Bear Alexander, five-star defensive tackle from Texas, that's going to be coming into town, recently decommitted from Georgia. So I'm really interested to kind of see what goes on with his recruitment. Does Alabama potentially have a good chance with him? Jake Pope, safety out of Buford High School. We saw his teammate Isaiah Bond in Tuscaloosa this past weekend. There's a couple other guys, Nicholas Singleton out of Philadelphia, running back. You have Dane Shore, offensive lineman out of Georgia, also making a trip to Tuscaloosa. So a lot of official visitors. I know that there's more. I probably missed a couple. Just talking about them off the top of my head, but obviously very big official visitor weekend. Ty Simpson coming back into town for his official visit. So obviously very good to get him in town to try to help recruit those guys that they're really going after. But yeah, I mean, it's a lock and loaded big week in Tuscaloosa yet again. Get a little bit of a break after this weekend. Things are going to kind of slow down. We've been going pretty hard at it for the last 4 weeks, and this is kind of this gives Alabama a little bit of a break. I think the coaching staff is extremely excited about probably taking a break from this camp season, because it's just constant. I mean, you have official visitors throughout the entire weekend, and then Monday, then you had another camp. So it's been like that throughout this entire month. Visitors camp. It's just nonstop. Coaches aren't getting home until pretty late at night, and they're leaving the house early in the morning, and they're working nonstop. So I know that they're excited about having a little bit of a break. Obviously, we will not be taking much of a break on Bama Insider. We'll have plenty of content to come, especially after during this week, after this week, and several months to come. So be sure you are staying tuned to our recruiting website at BamaInsider.com, especially on the recruiting board. Get the summer nuggets every single day, and stay up to date in everything that's going on with Alabama and its recruiting efforts. But like I said earlier, don't be worried about the commitments right now. They're going to come. Right now, it's building those relationships, making lasting impressions on these official visits. And then after these official visits end this month, kids are going to sit at home. They're going to talk to their families. They're going to make the best decision for their future. I think we're going to see a lot of them commit to Alabama.
Rome was not built in a day, guys. It's a process. It's a fun one to follow. Andrew, thank you so much for taking us through it this morning and taking us through this big weekend. I know you're probably excited for a little bit of a break, if nothing else, once this upcoming week is over. It's been a lot of effort, a lot of content you've created, everything else. We certainly appreciate it at Bama Insider. I know our fans appreciate it as well. Guys, go to our website to check out more. Like you said, the recruiting big board. You can find articles from Tony Tsoukalis, our staff writer, there as well. All kinds of content out right now. And check out the rest of our YouTube page while you're at it. We got live shows like this, videos breaking down these camps and these recruits, as well as the current players on the roster right now, getting you ready for the fall. For Andrew Bone, my name is Trey Hannity. This has been a Bama Insider Daily Recruiting Update For more videos like this, guys, again, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button one more time for me so we can keep it going. We really appreciate your support. Another big weekend. Get strapped in, locked and loaded. This is the last one for a little bit, but recruiting never really stops here, and it doesn't stop at BamaInsider.com. Have a great week, everybody. Roll Tide.